It's a new year, a fresh page. What will you fill it with? A butterfly or a butterfly? Choose carefully. Welcome to Blanket of Shadows. The funeral wasn't the hardest part. That whole week, there was so much activity and so many people buzzing around bringing food to the old Victorian farmhouse, and so much sharing of fond memories that Finch didn't have a moment to himself to be sad. Christmas was that Wednesday, and he'd never had so many presents under the tree. But the better the present, the more he wanted to show his mom. And he couldn't. He wasn't used to having so many people around, but it was nice to see how many people loved his mom, Caroline, even if it was overwhelming at times for a 10-year-old. He could feel her there in the warmth and swore he caught a peek of her every now and then walking through the throngs of people, and he could hear her voice joining in a group of laughter. Even in death, Caroline was the life of the party, free spirit who was beloved by the small, rural Florida town, even though sometimes she drank too much wine and danced in the moonlight at solstices. She had an incredible imagination and kept Finch supplied with stories better than the ones in the library. She sang to her plants, and they grew larger than her husband, Finch's stepdad, Mr. Winters, the local agronomist, believed scientifically possible. It drove him crazy. Even with his degrees and experience, Caroline, with her long flowing brown hair and her hippie clothes and decidedly non-academic plant songs, had a garden full of the biggest flowers and vegetables. And the butterflies those flowers attracted. Caroline was like a butterfly herself, flitty, colorful, a sucker for sweet smell and a patch of color. So the sight of her hooked up to machines in the sterile hospital environment was quite a shock. She was meant to be in the natural world, singing to her flowers, dancing in the moonlight, laughing with her cub. She didn't belong there, and after some time, she was freed of all of it. No, the funeral week wasn't the hardest part, because she didn't seem dead yet. It was the week after, when the house got quiet, and neither Finch nor Mr. Winters knew exactly what to say, but the absence of Caroline was as deafening as the wind gusts that occasionally ripped across the acreage. While Caroline's every word was truth to Finch's ears, and her touch was the definition of comfort, Mr. Winters wasn't the most overtly affectionate person. Caroline promised that they would warm up to each other, but they hadn't had time for that to happen yet. Finch and Mr. Winters were both infinitely lonely, with no roadmap to bridge the chasm. Mr. Winters was a man of seemingly deep emotions, but few words. Add to that Finch's struggles with anxiety and his tendency to fill a void of positive reinforcement with worst-case scenarios, and Finch was spiraling in the silence. Caroline's stories were love notes that spoke straight to her son's fears and hopes, and despite their seemingly playful nature, her words were important rungs on the ladders that led Finch out of the dark holes that he fell into. Without her around, he was struggling to keep himself in the present, in the now, in the light. He didn't always know what was real, except for the pain of loss. One morning, Mr. Winters walked into the kitchen in his worn jeans, dirt-covered boots, and standard-issue Florida outdoorsman breathable button-down shirt, and filled his travel mug with coffee. "You sure you don't want to come with me?" Mr. Winters asked. "It's not a long day, and they've got some cute calves." Finch thought about it, and he wanted the company, but he also thought the flowers needed some attention. Or rather, he needed theirs. I've got stuff to do, Finch said. Mr. Winters put some notebooks into his bag. Before you go, can you tell me one of the butterfly stories? Finch asked. Mr. Winters paused. He tapped on the table. When I get back, kid, he said, I'll do my best, but you know that was a Caroline thing. Mr. Winters reached out tentatively to put a reassuring hand on Finch's shoulder, but at the last second, he held back. Library, park, nowhere else, he said. Sandwich stuff is in the fridge. And then he was gone, leaving Finch alone in the house with nothing but memories of his mother and fears of the future. It was the first time he'd been truly alone in a while. I can do this, he told himself. Finch sat in the yard by the pansies and snapdragons and petunias that Caroline had planted for the winter. It was a cool day, but he had his shoes off, toes in the dirt. He realized that these flowers would die one day, and his mother wouldn't be around to replace them. Maybe if he watered them just right and sang to them like Caroline, no, nothing lasts forever. I wish you were still here, he said. He had so many feelings, all swirled around and mixed, but also distinct and begging to be let out. His mom had never had problems letting out emotion. She made it seem so natural. Finch couldn't sing or dance like Caroline, though, so he yelled. It felt good at first, but then all the emotions came flooding out, and he ended up crumpled in a pile on the ground. But the tears didn't come yet. Instead of standing, he laid down and felt the earth that his mother loved so much. It was cool and real. His mother was in the ground too, at the cemetery just down the road. Once there was a butterfly who wanted to build sandcastles, he began, but the words faltered and fluttered away. Something about they couldn't make sandcastles on the beach where the tropical flowers grew because the winds were too strong, so they went to a remote part of the island where nothing grew and made something beautiful out of something ugly. Finch grabbed the dirt beneath him. Everywhere around him were beautiful flowers or grass. This patch was just dirt. Had been for some time. Finch grabbed a shovel and started digging. His initial plan was to build a dirt castle, like in the story. But then he hit something hard. Brushed away some of the dirt and uncovered a skeleton rib cage with a black butterfly knife right through the heart. Finch's heart sank. It's not real, he tried to tell himself, but he couldn't snap out of it. Your father wasn't a good man, Mr. Winters said, startling Finch. And one day he found out where we lived and showed up drunk. I thought you, Finch began. I forgot something, Mr. Winters said. Good thing I came back. Finch remembered when his father finally stopped harassing them. They'd told him he had gone to prison for drunkenly attempting to kill someone by burning down their house. But now he knew the truth. Your mom picked the spot, Mr. Winters said. Figured it would help her flowers. But that spot, nothing would grow there. It's almost as if your father cursed it. No, Finch said, struggling to get his breath under control. Mom would never. The skeleton sat up and grabbed Finch with both hands. Finch was sure he was going into the dirt like his mom and dad. He wanted to scream, but he was petrified. He thought of his mom's warm smile and tried to remember her voice. This is not my story. The wind howled, and the scene dissipated. Sitting at the kitchen table, Finch shook his head and he snapped out of a terrible thought. Before you go, can you tell me one of the butterfly stories? He asked. Mr. Winters paused, tapped on the table. When I get back, kid, he said, I'll do my best, but that was a Caroline thing. Mr. Winters reached out tentatively to put a reassuring hand on Finch's shoulder, but at the last second he held back. Library, park, nowhere else, he said. Sandwich stuff is in the fridge. And then he was gone. Finch stepped out onto the front porch of the house and sat on one of the rockers. His friend Aaron, who lived just a few houses over, stopped by on his bike down at the street. You okay? Aaron yelled up to the house. Finch shook his head. My mom said you could come over, Aaron said, if you want. Finch thought about all the flowers that needed attention and watering. And he thought about Mr. Winter's instructions of where to go and not. But he also thought about his mother's story about the baby butterfly who got lost in a big city and other animals took care of him. While the big city was scary at first, it turned into a vacation and they ended the day watching fireworks. He also knew he couldn't be alone at that moment. Sure, Finch said. And he lost himself in the day riding bikes, playing video games, eating a big family dinner. It was nice to be around a whole family again and to have a mother's touch, even when she chided Finch for spilling a bit of water. When Aaron escorted Finch back home, it was dark, and there were several lights on in his house. There was another car in front of the house that Finch didn't recognize. Finch entered the house to the smell of Italian food and a crackling fireplace. Mr. Winters was sitting on the couch, cuddled up with a strange woman, drunk on red wine like Finch had never seen him. Who is that? Finch demanded. The woman pushed back from Mr. Winters. Nobody, Mr. Winters said, too drunk to shake it off and act normally. Just a friend. The woman elbowed Mr. Winters. Finch's eyes welled up with tears. The thought of Mr. Winters moving on from his mother so soon felt like Caroline was dying all over again. No, Mom trusted this man with her life, Finch thought. He would never desecrate her memory. I must be going, the woman said. She was gone, hopefully forever. Couldn't you have stayed away another hour? Mr. Winters asked, showing a level of anger and frustration that Finch had never seen from him. Finch didn't understand. It's not real, he told himself. But he couldn't snap out of it. Mr. Winters noticed Finch's tears and started laughing. Hey kid, watch this, he said. And he grabbed some of the fireworks they were going to shoot off on New Year's, threw them into the fireplace. As the fireworks shot through the house, Finch cowered in terror, and Mr. Winters laughed maniacally. Finch ducked for cover behind the table, but Mr. Winters chased him out of the living room. The sparks from the fireworks singed Finch's skin as smoke filled the house. Help, Finch yelled. There's no one coming for us, Mr. Winters replied. A bottle rocket hit Finch in the chest and it hurt like hell. As Finch stumbled backwards, he noticed that the curtains were on fire. Mr. Winters locked the deadbolt on the front door, pulled out a butterfly knife, and flicked it open. I need you, Mom, Finch begged. This is not my story. The wind howled, and the scene dissipated. Finch's heels were tapping on the floor, and his breath was shallow as he tried to keep it normal and steady. Before you go, can you tell me one of the butterfly stories? He asked. It came out louder and more rushed than he meant, but he was desperate. Mr. Winters sensed it and paused. He tapped on the table. When I get back, kid, he said, I'll do my best, but that was a Caroline thing. Mr. Winters reached out tentatively to put a reassuring hand on Finch's shoulder, but held back. Finch looked up at Mr. Winters with tears in his eyes. Please, he asked, much quieter this time. Then Mr. Winters' hand landed. Awkwardly, and not anything close to what Caroline would have done. But a connection was made. They both looked at the hand. You know I'm no good at the stories, Mr. Winters said, so I'm going to need some help. Finch smiled hopefully and took a deep breath. But what about your... Finch began. Like I said, short appointment, Mr. Winters reassured. Think we've got a little bit more time. Now, how do we start? Finch thought about his mother and her warmth and her voice and how he missed her terribly. It all seems so long ago, Finch said. The words just aren't there. That's because you're trying to tell her stories, Mr. Winters said. It's a new season of life, Finch. You have to tell your stories. Finch rubbed his eyes. But every time I think of her, I feel so sad and so scared of death, he said. I don't want to die. And I don't want to live worried about dying. We all die, Mr. Winters said, and left the room. Wait here. Finch looked out at the flowers his mother had planted for the winter in front of the house. Mr. Winters returned, with the old butterfly knife in his hand. Finch's heartbeat ticked up. You ever held a knife before? Mr. Winters asked, taking a seat next to Finch. Finch's breathing sped up. No, he said. Mom didn't like me playing with dangerous things. Mr. Winters nodded. But almost everything can be dangerous, right? He asked. Finch watched, entranced, as Mr. Winters opened the knife blade. It had recently been sharpened. This belonged to my son, he said. He's all grown now. I don't think he'll mind. Mr. Winters pulled out a pencil from his bag with a dull tip. But almost everything can be helpful too, right? He asked, and sharpened the pencil. Finch's breathing slowed back down a bit. So lean into it, Mr. Winters said, handing Finch the pencil. The pain can either be an obstacle or a tool. Mr. Winters pulled out a notebook and opened it to a fresh page. Finch looked at the knife, looked at the flowers outside, looked at the sharp tip of his pencil, and lowered it to the page. Once upon a time, there was a terrified little butterfly, Finch said, and he broke down in tears. Mr. Winters grabbed him tight. I miss her too, he said. A butterfly landed on a purple snapdragon outside. My story is you, the wind sang, and whisked the butterfly away.